So I consider myself pro-military and anti-war. And people have told me that doesn't make any sense. But it's like being a pro-fireman and anti-forest fire. For example, Martin Luther King Jr. was very anti-war. And if you heard me say this before, please don't give away the answer. Martin Luther King Jr. was very anti-war. He was anti-Vietnam War and anti-all war. But did you know that one of the few television shows that Martin Luther King Jr. would let his children watch was a television show that glorified the military? A television show that he himself liked. A television show that portrays people in the military with exceptional noble qualities. Can any of you guess what the television show was? MASH. MASH is a good guess.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good guess. MASH, by the way, is the Dalai Lama's favorite television show. But the show I am talking about is the most famous television show ever made.
That's true.
Way more famous than that's true. More famous than The Simpsons in terms of global name recognition. When the Dalai Lama first came to America, all of his monks wanted to go see this show. So monks in Tibet have heard of this show. I'll give you a hint. There was an actress in the show, and she was at a party, and somebody came up to her and said, "You have a fan that wants to talk to you." And she turned around, and the fan was Martin Luther King Jr. And he goes, "I really like your show, and my kids like it, and I really like your show." And she goes, she says, "Oh, I'm thinking about leaving the show." And he goes, "You can't leave that show." He goes, "It's too important. You can't leave that show. It's too important." And because of Martin Luther King Jr. talking to her, she decided to stay in the show. She was African American. Star Trek. That's it. Star Trek. Star Trek is a show about the military. They use military rank, military protocol, and Starfleet Academy is based in West Point, even having the same rank insignia and honor code as West Point. But in the future, there's no war, poverty, or hunger on Earth, so the military's mission has changed from war to peace, humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and exploration. And that's already happening to some extent in the world today. For example, the New Zealand Army is no longer focused on waging war. The New Zealand Army performs missions of peace, humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and it protects whales from poachers. And think of what the U.S. Army could do if its mission changed from war to disaster relief. The U.S. Army is the only organization in the world that can deploy tens of thousands of physically fit, mentally tough, well-trained people to any spot in the globe in a matter of days. Imagine U.S. soldiers being used for earthquake relief, tsunami relief, natural disaster relief. Wouldn't that be a good way to win hearts and minds around the world? Imagine if around the world the U.S. had this reputation. A natural disaster happens, the Americans come, they help, they leave. Leaving part's important. We can't have 800 military bases all over the world. If anybody wanted to attack the Americans, their own people would say, "Are you crazy? If you hurt the Americans, who's going to come help us if there's a natural disaster?" Now, would soldiers like that if their mission changed from war to disaster relief? Would soldiers like that? I think 98% of them would. And if you ever wondered whether soldiers would like that kind of mission, here's a quote from General MacArthur. General MacArthur said, "The soldier above all other people prays for peace, for he must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war." The soldier above all other people prays for peace, for he must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war.